The Office of the Prime Minister Press Office is the primary liaison between the Fourth Estate and the Office of the Prime Minister and Cabinet.
Every day, we are working to build a more inclusive economy and a stronger, safer country.
Hear all of the latest developments as the Davis administration carries out the broad mandate of progress and change. Our live weekly press briefings provide full access to current newsmakers on the most topical issues of the day. We facilitate prompt responses from cabinet ministers on the latest reports and get answers on the issues that matter to you.
Will any penalties be levied against the company?
OPM Press Now, keeping you in the know.
This is the first occasion upon which I am presenting my government's agenda in this assembly. I pray God's special guidance and blessings upon us all. My government remains grateful for the support of and partnership with the Bahamian people and looks forward to continuing that support to build on further progress and drive new change. Now that the country is headed in the right direction, together we can work ever more fervently.
The Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press conference keeps Bahamians in the know. Each week, we also feature a new Bahamian food business.
Many of these businesses were started during the pandemic, and they really highlight Bahamian resilience and ingenuity. Today, we have
Kathy's Bakery,
Nutty Bavarian Bahamas,
proud owner of Sensational Goodies Pastries.
Get your small business featured in the weekly OPM press conference and share your dream with the country.
Who are here in person and those who have joined us via the live stream. I'm Natalia Clark, and I want to welcome you to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. We have a very exciting and engaging agenda for you today. So now I'm going to introduce to you Acting Press Secretary Keishla Adderley. Keishla?
Thank you very much, Italia, and good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all as always, especially Berthany. Hi there. All right, this morning we're talking food security and the economy. As you know, just last month, the S&P released its latest rating on the Bahamas, and that report reflected that the country's economic recovery was robust, and the GDP was estimated at the GDP growth, that is, was estimated at some 14.4%. Here to talk about that is Minister of Economic Development, Mr. Michael Halkitis, and he will give us details on those forecasts and what the implications are for the country going forward. We're also happy to be joined by the Minister of Agriculture and Marine Resources, Mr. Jomo Campbell. Mr. Campbell and his team are preparing for the Caribbean Week of Agriculture. Now, this is a major event for the region, as of course the region works feverishly to shore up food security as global conditions continue to change. There will also be a component of that conference which will focus on the management of cannabis in the region. That is the legalized version of it, and just taking a look at how other regions are managing it. So without further ado, we welcome Mr. Michael Halkitis, Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Adderley, and good morning to all. It's a pleasure to be here once again. Seems like it's been a long time. Good to see all of you here. I'd speak a bit about the S&P and the Moody's latest reports, but I also want to just share some information on the recently concluded Climate Finance in the Americas conference that was held this past Monday, and as well the OAS Committee on Sustainable Development Conference, which was held on this past Tuesday and concluded last evening. And I also want to just say that, we were very happy to receive the speech from the throne yesterday, which sets out a very, very aggressive agenda. So we'll be very busy in the Parliament over the coming weeks. The speech, of course, reiterated the theme of security in all aspects, including personal, economic, health, and as well a commitment to, amongst other things, have a significant investment in housing. The Climate Finance Conference and the OAS Sustainable Development Conference that the Bahamas hosted over the last 3 days. Prime Minister served as chair of the Climate Finance Conference on Monday, and I chaired the Conference on Sustainable Development on Tuesday and Wednesday. Was very, very significant, very successful. At the conclusion of the conference, we were able to agree, all of the delegations there, which included the vast majority of the members of the Organization of American States, we were able to complete and release a declaration on climate finance, Declaration of Nassau, and for sustainable development, we concluded another declaration and an action plan, which underscores the commitment of the countries in the region to poverty elimination and sustainable, resilient, and equitable development. The aim is we recognize that many countries, not only the Bahamas, and you've heard the Prime Minister speak of the amount of our national debt that is attributable directly to our response to climate events. And interestingly, during the course of the conference, we had many other countries echo that their national debt, 40% to 60%, attributable to their having to respond to climate events, those who have to deal with hurricanes, but also in the region, floods, earthquakes, and other events as such. And the common problem being resources having to be diverted from other important uses such as health, education, security, to mitigation and responding to natural disaster. So I believe that perhaps when the Prime Minister first made that statement maybe a year or two ago, there was some comment on it, but it is interesting to see that during the course of this conference, many countries echoed similar sentiments. So overall, the understanding is that when we talk about climate change, we're not only talking about weather and natural disasters, but the issue of climate change, and as climate change gets worse, it inhibits nations' ability to pursue sustainable and equitable economic development because they have to incur debt to respond to climate events. The cost of the debt is normally very high in countries, but again, one thing that we have in common is what we call the space, the headroom. A lot of countries are already heavily indebted. So what we wanted to come out of this conference was a commitment by organizations such as the World Bank, the IMF, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the Green Climate Fund and other environmental funds, to make more resources available to countries, make those resources available at affordable rates, work to ensure that the process of gaining access to these resources are not cumbersome and bureaucratic, so easing the way for countries to gain access to these resources, and implementing more what I would call more user-friendly instruments that countries can use. So not strictly borrowing money, but mixing in some grant funding, and as well trying to mobilize some private sector, getting the private sector involved, because as much funds as the IMF or the World Bank and those others might have, there is a need to blend in finance from the private sector. And we also agreed that within the region, we would have training to assist countries in being able to access this funding. So it was a very successful conference. And so now what we will do is that these documents, the Declaration on Climate Finance and the Declaration on Sustainable Development, they would be, the COP28 conference is in the end of November into the beginning of December in Dubai. And so what will happen is these declarations will be now taken to COP as a common hemispheric position. And so all these countries in the Western Hemisphere who are members of the Organization of American States will be able to go and say, this is our common position, and it's a point that strengthens our negotiating position at the COP. But last thing I would say on that is an understanding that climate affects everything. We might think it's just, a hurricane or a flood and that's it, and it's in isolation. But we came away with an understanding from the experience of all the countries that, it affects nations' ability to develop in a sustainable manner. And so we thought it was very successful. The participants were very happy to be here in the Bahamas, and of course they commented on our world-renowned hospitality. And I'll take some questions on that at the end. Before I get to the other matter of the ratings, I just wanted to say as well that in my capacity as Minister responsible for the promotion of financial services, I, along with the director and officers from the ministry, accompanied a mission of the Bahamas Financial Services Board on a promotional tour of Brazil last week. We visited 3 cities, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Florianopolis, promoting the Bahamas. Some of you who cover business might know that there are some changes that are, in the works in the Brazilian taxation regime. And this was a very, very timely mission to go and to be able to meet with stakeholders, to give a public presentation, but also to have private meetings with stakeholders, law firms, met with a few law firms, some other financial services providers. We had an opportunity to engage with a group that is involved in tourism, and so we're exploring that as well. And what the Bahamas Financial Services Board does is several times a year they visit centers of other financial centers, New York, London, Brazil, where there are service providers, where there are concentrations of clients of companies in the Bahamas, just to share experience and get information on new developments that are happening in those markets. And it gives us an opportunity to see where we can develop new products here, where we can amend our legislation. And I can say it was a very, very positive experience. The Bahamas remains near the top of financial services jurisdictions, despite the challenges that we have, and we heard this directly from some of the service providers, and so that was good to hear. And you will hear shortly in the coming weeks about some refinements and some new offerings that we will have in our financial services industry. We also expect to be getting some positive news in terms of our non-compliant rating, towards the end of the year. As Mrs. Adley mentioned, S&P released not quite a rating report, but a review. They maintained our stable rating, which was very positive for us. Moody's came back a few days ago and did the same thing, where they issued a report maintaining a stable rating. It was not a rating action. And I think what we take away from both reports is an acknowledgement of the strength of the economic recovery in the Bahamas, post-COVID, recovering very strong, an acknowledgement of the improved fiscal position, meaning lower deficits, lower amounts of borrowing. As you would recall, this year we are only slated to borrow $45 million in new borrowings in this budget, so lower borrowings. Strong external reserves. So those 3 things taken together, strong economic growth, improved fiscal position, strong reserves are very, very positive signs, and we have done this in an environment of no new taxes on Bahamians. And so it's very positive. Of course, in these reports, they would always point to challenges as well. And the challenges that we face are, in terms of the global economic environment, which has brought on inflation that it's kind of stubborn. And, now you see recently we have some political turmoil going on right to the north of us, and as well the continued conflict in Europe. So overall, positive reports. Of course, we do not rest on those things. There's a lot of work still left to be done. But overall, we are optimistic, but cautiously optimistic, because as you know, we have 2 months left in hurricane season. We don't know the direction of the conflict in Ukraine, and now we have some political developments in the U.S. that might affect their economy and geopolitics as well. But I think the bottom line we take from those two reports is that we are on the right track, but we just need to remain vigilant as we move forward throughout this year. So I wanted to open up with those bits of information, and then of course I'll be pleased to take any questions you have on any those matters or any other subject.
Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Alkides,
Yes, sir.
a significant amount of
see you
debt
coming.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you. I see we're refinancing a lot of the debt with monies borrowed from the IDB and the World Bank. I think Why aren't we going back and issuing bonds to help refinance some of this?
There's a couple of things happening. We had a special borrowing from the World Bank during the pandemic, but we have been graduated from the World Bank, so we wouldn't borrow from them, except in that particular circumstance during the pandemic where we got the exception and we got $100 million to assist with the pandemic recovery. The idea is, well, what has happened is traditionally we have underutilized those windows, we call them windows that we have, the amount of money. You know, just a bit of a background. We are members of the IDB, we're members of the IMF, members of the World Bank. We don't borrow from IMF and the World Bank except in those exceptional circumstances during the pandemic. But it's cheaper, bottom line. They give us what they call concessional financing. When you go to the international bond markets, you are basically doing an auction, right? You're saying, okay, we want to raise X amount of money. What do you charge us? What interest rates do you charge us? All right. And unfortunately, sometimes those prices that you get do not always reflect what we call the fundamentals, meaning, we're here in the Bahamas, we see our economy is growing, tourism has bounced back very nicely, people are working, unemployment is down, so it's a very good picture. Sometimes investors on the outside might not reflect because they don't, and particularly because we were locked down for 2 years and information coming out has been slow, they don't see what's happening on the ground. So you might get higher price. So bottom line is we want to maximize our access to organizations like the IDB, like the Development Bank of the Caribbean and Latin America, which we are joining, because they would allow you to have access to funding. So when you need to borrow, you can get money at a cheaper rate than going to the international market.
Any strings attached to some of this borrowing?
No. Well, for the IDB, and when I say well, it's still no. But when I say, for example, the IDB traditionally they would lend money for what they call projects. So they would lend you money, and it'll be attached to, let's say, you're building a hospital, or you're building an airport, or well, the famous one is you're building the road. That was an IDB loan when we did the New Providence Road Improvement Project. And then they have something else that they call a policy-based loan, which is you would borrow money, and then they would say, okay, well, we're lending this money. Let's see some, as part of this loan, we want to see some reforms in certain areas, but not to the extent of, let's say, when people talk about an IMF program, that's when they tell you, okay, we'll lend you money, and it'll be dispersed in certain tranches, but you have to do things, and the famous things they normally tell you is reduce your size of the public service and privatize and do things. So no, not that kind of thing. Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to say, I guess, when the government will begin to comply with the Public Procurement Act requirement to disclose the water contract?
We a bit of background. The act that requires the disclosure. That's one element of it. It was as you know, it was passed, I think, in earlier in 2021 and came into effect like September 2021. In order to really effect it, there was a serious, large infrastructure that had to be put in place at the back end of it. For example, the appointment of a chief procurement officer, the training of procurement committees in not only the Ministry of Finance, but in every single ministry and government agency. We're talking about IT, acquiring the IT and getting people trained up on it. And so that is what we have been doing for the last, 18 months. We are at a position right now where we have just about completed the training, and there are some of the contracts that have to be uploaded. We think we are almost at the position where those are completed. So, we will begin to do that. We can look for that in the coming weeks. But I would just like to say there's never any sort of desire or intention to circumvent. But, it's very, very easy to go into Parliament and pass a law and say, we're doing this and we're doing that. We see it with a number of pieces of legislation where we have to go back now. And I can point to, one that we had, which was we changed the Department of Statistics to the Bahamas National Statistical Institute. And it had some very good provisions in there, but it also had a lot of provisions that required monetary outlay and training and amendments to other pieces of legislation. So, it's good. People say, okay, you publish it, you got transfer. Yes, we agree. But at the back end of it, there are a lot of requirements that we had to do. So the public will see that very shortly. We are committed to doing it. Those few agencies that had not fully uploaded, we have people working on that now to get that done as soon as possible. So you'll see that shortly.
You say in the coming days, is it like before the end of the year?
It'll be before the end of the year. Don't worry.
Speaking of borrowing, it was suggested recently that only the Minister of Finance can sign for money borrowed. I just wanted to see you clarify that it was based on the DPM signing for a loan without your...
We understand, how the law operates, and we comply with the law. When it's necessary to have everything completed and I's dotted and T's crossed, we comply with the law. All right.
So are you saying that was just a preliminary signature that the DPM made?
I don't want to comment on that. Directly, because I wasn't there, but from time to time, DPM acts as Minister of Finance. But when the agreements are concluded, they will be executed properly.
So in response to the opposition leader who asserted that laws were broken.
Well, that's it seems to be the opposition leader's. Every time he gets up, he says laws were broken. No laws were broken. No laws were broken.
So how is it dealing with increasing inflation and also the power cost increases?
I'm sorry?
How is it currently dealing with inflation increases and also power cost increases?
Sorry, when you say it.
Government, sorry.
You mean, I'm not quite clear. Sorry, you say how is government dealing with...
Government's plan to respond to the current inflationary period.
Okay. Unfortunately, this is a problem that everybody is facing. The whole world. If you watch the news, the people in the U.S. are complaining about the same thing all over the place. Unfortunately, we seem to be living in a world of heightened inflation. It has moderated a bit. Our difficulty is, and my colleague will speak about it some more, our difficulty is that we import, just about everything. And so we import the inflation. Now, how do we combat it? We have to do things like more longer-term solutions, like increase the amount of food that we produce, so we're not importing as much, and we can eat what we produce locally. And we have to do things like accelerate our move to renewable energy. So we use more solar and more renewables, so we're not relying as much on the imported fuel. And we just have the mercy of fuel prices, and they go up and down. Putin wakes up tomorrow and decides to do something, the prices spike and that sort of thing. And we import it. And so, we have really no control. And so those are some of the longer term things that we can do. In the short term, we just have to do the best we can as consumers to, adjust our behavior to try and save some money. But unfortunately, it's an environment that we're in, and we're not alone. I spoke about the conference I just attended, every single delegate who sat around the table, 50 plus of them, saying these are the things that they're battling. And so what we have done is in the last budget, we brought down, customs duties on things like building materials and more food. Last year, we had expanded the amount of price control on items that came under price control with food and medicines. And, we took I took a lot of heat for that. But, that was something that we felt had to be done to bring some relief in the short term. So, long term, you got to do things like grow more food, hasten our transition to renewable energy. Short term, as best we can, just, adjust our behavior as best. And I know, it's tough, and we recognize that, but, we just have to, unfortunately, that's the sort of environment that we're living in today.
You mentioned Brazil. Is it a foregone conclusion that I think private banks might be set to lose a big...
No, not at all. And that's why I said it was positive, and that is why it's so useful to go and have these meetings and sit across from service providers and attorneys and people who are involved in these things every day, and far from it, quite the opposite. We came away convicted and not even, not wishful thinking, but really, sitting with private sector people in an office, so there's no public relations with it, who told us there's a real opportunity for us to actually benefit from, some of the changes that they are doing there. And from our still position as a prime destination. Sometimes, we beat down ourselves so much when we're here. We are our own worst critics. And when we go away and we speak to these people, they say, listen, Bahamas has a lot to offer. Yeah, people talk about Luxembourg and Cayman and BVI and Panama, but the Bahamas is still very, very attractive. And so while there might be some adjustment, what we came away with was opportunity.
I guess the construction of the new prison. Are you able to?
They did?
Yeah, supposedly. Are you able to disclose the name of the contractor?
I was away last week, so unfortunately I missed the meeting. But and I'm not sure the statement that the cabinet approved the construction is correct. I'm not sure. I have to be brief. I just got back this morning.
But when speaking about the prison, I wanted to know if you would be able to provide some kind of an update. I know recently the prison commissioner, the Commissioner of Corrections, told us that the Ministry of Finance informed them that they had to find ways to scale back on the price of the prison. I think originally it was like maybe $93 million. Are you able to say what it is that government is looking to spend on the prison, or how far down? Are we looking at maybe 50 million?
Let me say this, and I don't want to wade into Wade's. That's Wayne, not Wade. Let me say this, and because I have to refresh myself on the debate, right? I know there was a proposal floated. Not as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to, like I said, I was away, so as far as I'm aware, nothing was approved as yet. But the government of the Bahamas has resources that it has to spread all over the place, and we have to make sure that we are allocating those to the maximum benefit, and that the people can feel that as well. All right. So because we have to report to the Bahamian people. On the flip side of that, we have to make sure that when people are incarcerated, they are done so in humane conditions and as best as possible, because again, we get rated by human rights people from all over the world, and they can be scathing sometimes, and so we have to balance. So I don't want to put a price. We understand that there needs to be some work done, but we have to balance that as well, because we also need a new hospital, and we need a new one in Grand Bahama that we're building, and we need new airports and stuff. So we have to balance what we do and make sure that comports with the priorities that the Bahamian people feel. So let me leave that right there. I don't want to take up all the time because we have the Minister of Agriculture here. But my answer is I can undertake to get the information, and as soon as we have a decision, we can share that with you. I undertake that we can share that with you. The idea might be to do something, do it in incremental steps where you make step-by-step improvement, so you're not making such a huge investment at the outset. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I don't want to hog up the whole hour. I will be here. Yes.
Sounds like there are more questions for you.
No problem.
All right, well, right now we're going to allow the new Minister of Agriculture and Marine Resources, the Honorable Jomo Campbell, to tell us about the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, which is coming up this week. His initiation as the new Minister of Agriculture, please.
Baptism by fire. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here this morning along with my super awesome team from the ministry. I'm accompanied by P.S. Cates, U.S. Hepburn, and project manager for Caribbean Week of Agriculture, Ms. Fox. So they're here along with me today as a part of this presentation. To once again remind everyone that the Bahamas is doing it big. We as a country are hosting the largest agriculture event in the region. Over 300 persons have registered to attend the Caribbean Week of Agriculture set for October 9th through the 13th at Super Clubs Breezes. Now, this is significant and historic for our country, since we are celebrating our 50th year of independence and the 50th anniversary of CARICOM. We expect 21 CARICOM countries to attend the conference and expo under the theme Accelerating Vision 25 by 2025. This premier conclave will feature a number of closed sessions, such as the 13th special meeting of the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism Ministerial Council, where ministers of fisheries from across the region will discuss numerous policies. Some of the topics for this week's seminar include youth and dialogue, lining production, crop productivity initiatives, leveraging opportunities for enhanced plant breeding innovation by building a regional roadmap, and also the cost of healthy eating in the Caribbean. Other agricultural organizations such as IACA, FAO, and CARDI will also host seminars geared towards bolstering agriculture in the country and the Caribbean at large. Now, at the trade show, which will be held throughout the week, we will have over 30 vendors that will be showcasing both regional and local products. Throughout this event, we intend to connect producers to buyers and host a business-to-business seminar that would educate producers on the ever-changing standards of buyers. Moreover, I'm also pleased to announce that we will be hosting a special session on cannabis farming, where high-level stakeholders, and no pun intended, where high-level stakeholders in the region will speak to their experience about medical cannabis. This session is entitled A Regional Conversation on Cannabis, and will be held on Thursday, October 12th at 5:30 p.m. Through to 7 p.m. Now, we expect that countries such as Belize, Jamaica, and St. Lucia will speak about their roadmap to cannabis farming and provide an insightful conversation on the topic. And we are encouraging anyone who has an interest in growing medicinal cannabis to join us either in person or virtually for this event. For information on this event session, please feel free to follow the ministry's Facebook page, or you can visit the website at cannabisbahamas.gov.bs to stay informed about the government's policy on medicinal cannabis. The government at this time is still welcoming any feedback via this website. Conclusively, we note that all of the sessions of Caribbean Week of Agriculture will be timely and will assist us in growing this vital sector of our economy. To attend any of the sessions, feel free to visit the website at www.cwa2023.caricom.org. And I'll repeat that, it's www.cwa2023.caricom.org. And I thank you for this opportunity, and if there are any questions, my team and I are here to assist in answering them as best we can.
Morning, Minister, and welcome to the new role. What government has any plans to cap the amount of licenses that are going to be awarded in the cannabis industry once the legislation has been put forward?
That discussion is still ongoing, and it's a matter right now of high priority for the AG office and all of the other relevant stakeholders, and we should have a firm conclusion on that in short order. As I said, the activity and discussion is still at a fever pitch. It's still very high, and feel free to weigh in on any suggestions you may have at the website previously mentioned.
It's now the month of October, and the last discussion with the AG, I specifically asked about cannabis legislation, and he said before year's end, so that gives us November, December.
Yeah.
Is government still confident that marijuana legislation will be table passed before year's end?
I can say that the confidence is high. As you know, with these things, they ebb and flow. As a result of the conference that we'll be having next week, there may be new initiatives, there may be new amendments that we may have, that we may deem important and necessary to be implemented in what it is we want to achieve. As Minister said previously, we see far too often that we pass laws and then we have to come back and amend and re-amend. So that is why it's important for us, and that's why the Caribbean Week of Agriculture is important in this session in particular, because we wanted to get it as right as possible. We know perfection is sometimes a far-fetched idea, and hope springs eternal, but we want to get it as right as possible before we bring it to the Bahamian people, to Parliament.
Last month you would have said that consultation with various stakeholders like the Rastafarian community and farmers would be held until the opening of Parliament, which was yesterday. So I guess what is the outcome of those sessions?
Well, it hasn't concluded as yet. As I indicated, the government is still accepting feedback, and even today, if you wish, if anyone in the general public wishes to, make statements, offer suggestions on how many licenses perhaps should be granted, what the cap should be, we are still receiving feedback on it to this very moment.
If I may, congratulations as well on the new role.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, not specific to marijuana, but to the marine resources portion of your portfolio. Some fishermen have expressed concern about poaching. Some foreigners coming into our seas and poaching our seas, fishery resources, lobsters and stuff. And some of them urge government to, make steps to try and, make it a major economic crime. Has any conversation been had at all to speak to anything that can be done to, stiffer penalties, maybe increased patrolling? That probably will come before the law enforcement, but has anything been done, any conversations underway to try to provide some sort of relief to fishermen who this is the way that they make their living?
At this time, I personally have not had the chance to meet with the fishing community at large, but what I can say is privately, conversations are underway to address that issue. One of the main priorities for us is prevention and detection. And so conversations are being had with certain persons as it relates to GIS and tracking and detection systems, IT systems that we can use, because if we can detect fishing boats that are coming into our waters that shouldn't be here, and we have a collaborative effort with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force who patrol our seas. Prevention is always better than cure. And as I indicated earlier, we will also be hosting a special session of the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism Ministerial Council, where we will flesh out all of these issues, because the Bahamas doesn't face the nightmare of poaching alone. And so what we want to do is get a collaborative approach as to how we as a region can stem the tide of illegal poaching in our waters.
Mr. Campbell, your predecessor left in place several initiatives. One was the Golden Milk Program, and the second one was a technical partnership with the Chinese government. Have you been briefed on those initiatives, and what's the status with those now?
Yes, as it relates to the Golden Yoke, I can happily say that in our collaboration with the Attorney General's office, we have just recently received a revised version of a contractual document that will be fleshed out between ourselves and the vendors, and there's one or two minor tweakings to be done in that regard. And so you should be looking forward to some good news as it relates to the Golden Yoke in the very near future.
And what about the technical
And the
partnership
second
with
part.
the Chinese government that was supposed to be helping you build greenhouses?
Yes.
The technical assistance, what's the status with that project now?
What I can say is that we will be seeking further update with our counterparts in that regard, but if they are not here, I don't want to say that the greenhouses are in fact there. Two of them were expected to be on the way. I was made to understand that there may have been some delay in the shipping, but I can also say that we definitely expect them to be here in the very near future as well, if they aren't already. And that is something that I could confirm for you by the end of the day. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Any further questions for Mr. Campbell?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there further questions in general?
I'm not sure if Mr. Halkidas, Minister Halkidas, coming back to the podium. We spoke with,
We're still in progress. Go ahead, Theo. Sorry.
we spoke with marina operators who are complaining about the tax being levied on them. They noted that it's affecting their business, and they've seen a decrease in overall revenue since it's been implemented. What is government's response to their concerns? I mean, and are there any plans in the pipeline to probably pull back on this tax?
What we can do is, I haven't been, I need to see the comments, and I think what we will look to do is have a meeting with them. We can sit down and talk about, the implementation. Our view is that it was not unreasonable. Our view is that our marine environment is one of the most precious resources that we have, and to the extent that people are using it to generate income for themselves, and given the fact that we have to expend resources to protect it, we think there needs to be a just payment for using our resources. We don't think, when we looked at some of the other jurisdictions and they were benchmarking the fees that are paid around the world, we don't think it's unreasonable. Primarily, again, given the fact that this is our most precious resource, and so we have to ensure that we have resources to protect it as well, and we get those resources from the people who use it. Having said that, if there was an issue with implementation, if they see an effect on their business, we don't want to see that either. So we would welcome, and I would have my team reach out to the association. We'll find the communication, reach out to them. We can sit down around the table and speak about it and see how we can better, how we can, have a situation where they are not as negatively impacted, but we still have the opportunity to get some resources from it.
We have a big payment due coming soon. How's
We have, I think you're talking about the bond maturity in 2024. Yeah, we have, we have a plan. We have various resources put aside, and so we look to retire that, ahead of when it comes to. So no, we have a plan. I know there was some commentary in I think one of these reports. I don't remember exactly which one that said, that spoke about the schedule of things that we have coming over the years, one in 2024, and then maybe every other 2 years going from there. We are aware of that, and we have plans in place so that as these rollovers come due, we have the ability to do it. And I'll just leave it. So we're aware, and we have the plans in place to do it, which include putting aside money into sinking funds so that when they become due, you're not looking at the whole thing.
Discussions related to with the gas retailers. I know
Yes.
we haven't heard anything. And
Yes.
gas is
Well,
now up $6.
let me say this. Yeah, let me say this. It's a difficult situation because if it was easy, we would have, we wouldn't have been still talking about it. Eh? And I smile. I'm not making light of it. It's a difficult situation. We understand their plight of the retailers. I mean the conditions that they have to operate on, including rents and franchise fees and those sorts of things, right? It makes it difficult for them. And we understand that is why we were able to reach out with them and offer them some element of relief that I had discussed previously. And so we continue to talk. I had a brief conversation just before I left for the promotional tour, where an additional idea was sort of floated. We have to sort of hash it out. As I've said before, our position is we spoke about inflation and high prices today. The immediate effect of a margin increase would be higher prices at the pump, which will affect every single person in this room and everyone who owns a car. The government doesn't want to, be the cause of that just by something that we do. And so we continue the conversation. We ask them for forbearance. We continue to meet. We understand their plight. We're not unsympathetic, but we would just believe that, it would be counterproductive to, go with a margin increase at this time. There was some other issue that was, I can't talk about it now, but a suggestion that was made, we have to process it. And so we continue to look for ways we can bring relief. It might be we have to just look at this whole issue of how we price from the wholesale level straight down to the retail level. We are hopeful that, the prices fluctuate daily in terms of the international market. They're down a bit, but again, that can change tomorrow. But I say all that to say we continue to have an open mind, but our overriding consideration is, increasing the price at the pump directly would be counterproductive.
As the dialogue continues, though, will Bahamians continue to see the rise at the pumps while government continues to...
That is something we're looking at because, the price at the pump, that is related to what's happening on the international market in terms of oil. Because how it goes is the wholesalers would purchase the product, the gasoline, and the gasoline, of course, is related to the price of oil, and then depending on what their cost is, a margin is added on top. So if costs go up, then you're adding margin on top of a higher cost. And so that's why I said a lot of it depends on what happens internationally. We are looking at the whole picture right now at the ministry. We're looking at ways, and hopefully in a few weeks I can be able to come and tell you about some changes in the way we do things. But I think we just need to look at this whole, system that we currently have. I don't want to say more than that right now, but unfortunately for the time being, we are, at the mercy of the international fluctuations. All right?
Has the wholesalers approached the government for margin increase as well?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And from what we understand, the government gets a lion's share of that chain of taxes, right?
No, well, when you say lion's share, the government's taxation is fixed. So if the prices go up, the government's share does not go up. So if it goes up or if it goes down, the government gets the same thing.
But it's still a huge chunk,
though. Yeah. Well, when you say huge, it's relative. It's fixed.
Is the government considering giving some of that back to the retailers?
As I've said, the government has a budget framework and a taxation plan, and that includes, the taxation on the fuel. And so all that means if we cut that or give that back to somebody, we have to find it from somewhere else. Either we borrow it or raise a tax somewhere else. And so again, I know it's vexing. I looked this morning, quite frankly, I saw everything is like between 611 and 617. It's high. It's too high, in my opinion. That is why I say we're looking at, exploring some ways and how we can change the way we do things. Very preliminary. But, so we just ask the public for patience. All right?
I guess, just for the sake of conversation, since we've had this conversation before.
Just for sake of conversation.
BRICS. What is
BRICS.
What's the thought on that? I mean,
it's again, I'll refer back. We have to get to the food people. Oh, I have time.
You go ahead.
All right. I say food people. I'm sorry. The young business person. I say food. All right. I'll refer back to this conference that we just concluded, which is the OAS conference, countries in this region, all CARICOM countries, as well as Latin America, the US, and Canada, Mexico. And a big part of this conversation is what they call South-South cooperation, and an acknowledgement that the financial system, the global economic system, the construct, the way it's set up now, does not serve countries in what they call the global South, meaning the mostly developing countries. And you would have heard Prime Minister Motley of Barbados talk about the need for a revamping of the global financial architecture, meaning countries in the South, even when they need to borrow money, they are thought to be more risky, and so they have to pay higher interest rates, get worse terms than countries in the North, and so the inequality and the inequity just the gap continues to widen. And so I think BRICS was an effort to have more South-South cooperation, countries in the more, not the developed world as you would think, the US and in Europe, but Brazil, China, Russia, India, and then I think they just had 11, South Africa, and then I think there was just 11 new members invited or new members joined. And I think it is, again, a furtherance of this idea, this philosophy that, okay, in the developed world, let's get together because that system that they have there is not working for us. As far as a threat to the current system, I don't know, but I don't think so. But and as far as, I don't think, I hope it's not looked at as and I don't know if it's being looked at as a adversarial relationship.
The US dollar and our reliance on that and our
reserves,
how is that going to affect us in the long run if it is successful?
I don't think, to me, my view, I don't think the US dollar will be displaced. I mean, they've been having that conversation for a long time. I think the idea within this alliance is to trade amongst each other and perhaps use their own currencies to trade amongst each other. But as far as displacing the US dollar and that having an impact, I don't see that happening. Okay? Good? All right, thank you.
Just really quickly, in answering your question, Mr. Kemp, I can now confirm that we do. There is, in fact, one ship here with one of the greenhouses, and the other is expected in very short order. Additionally, I also wanted to add the fact that we will be hosting over 80 Bahamian students at the conference as well to start to grow the idea in them of having their meals come from the backyard to the dinner table, or, as we say, from the farm to the kitchen table. I think that's very important because we're not just growing fruits and vegetables in this ministry. We also want to grow the minds of young men and young boys and girls into men and women of the Bahamas in an effort to reduce our import percentage as it relates to what we eat here in the Bahamas. So I just wanted to provide you that information, as I said, before the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Minister Alcides, and thank you, Minister Campbell. Thank you very much. And I think that does it for our questions, everybody.
No, I have a question.
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Yes.
During the speech from the throne yesterday, the government had pledged to amend the Immigration Act, but they didn't talk about, I know they had pledged previously to amend the Bahamas Nationality Act to equalize citizenship access for both men and women. Is that on the back burner now, or will that be, something that will be included in the government plan, even though they didn't mention it yesterday?
It's certainly not on the back burner. The issue of immigration is a legacy issue, and it's an issue that's always on the front burner, whether for the government or through public discourse. Even before the speech from the throne, the Davis administration had pointed to the fact that it was taking a closer look at the immigration, at all of the policies and all of the day-to-day operations of the immigration department, and that is still a priority. Well, I don't want to put a time on it, but a commitment has been made to put in place a commission to specifically look at the issues facing the immigration department. And of course, all of it is with a view to ensuring that the public has confidence in the immigration department and that everything that happens there is done above board.
Yes, are you able to provide the breakdown or the cost of the trip to the King's coronation and the recent independence celebration?
Unfortunately, we've not been provided with those numbers at this point. All right. Thank you, everyone. I think that is it for questions. So we will move on now to what we may say is our favorite segment, right? Shanique Lightbourne joins us. She is from Italian Water Ice. I'll invite her to the podium now to talk about her business. And of course, we will have the delight at the end of getting a sample, maybe even seconds. Shanique Lightbourne of Italian Water Ice.
A pleasant good afternoon, everyone. So the name of the business is called Icebox Italian Water Ice. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of business was started during the time of COVID. And before COVID actually happened, we had a shave ice business, and it was a pop-up business. So of course, during COVID, we couldn't do any pop-up events. So I pretty much sat at home and decided, okay, what can I do to still take the business to the next level? So I did an ice cream van, and I did that for about a few years. And then I decided I wanted something unique, something that was different, something that incorporated flavors of the Bahamas, as well as just basically the how can I put it, frozen dessert, bottom line, something that was refreshing, cool, and easy to have. So we came up with Italian Water Ice, and what it is, it's actually a frozen treat that's similar to ice cream, but there's no dairy. So it's guilt-free, it's fat-free, and it gives you a texture that's similar to ice cream, but it has the refreshing flavors of a shave ice, if I can put it together. So it's kind of a combination of a shave ice and ice cream put together without the dairy. So today we get to try flavors. We have mango, and with that we are able to put natural fruits in it. We have boozy flavors. There's sky juice, of course. There's pink Moscato. And so far, the business has been growing very well. We're a catering business, and so we cater to events, showers, birthday parties, corporate events, and it's been going very good. We just love it, and you guys will be able to try it today. Any questions? Sure. Not a problem, most definitely. Yes, sir. Thank you. I really would appreciate that. And definitely, because the mango is one of the favorite flavors. And so today we have fresh mangoes in our flavor today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. All the best in your business. The minister asked if the fresh fruits will come from BAMSI, the mangoes in particular. And yes, we have that commitment. So thank you very much, Minister, and thank you very much. And we will, of course, be queuing up to sample in just a few minutes. Well, that brings our press conference to a close. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and have a great afternoon.